flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. Why do I keep getting these things?
Because we signed up.
Where's Allison?
She's on her way.
Ta-da, here she is.
Oh, can you sign that, please?
Sure. I've got.
Oh, pencil.
I'm a pencil guy. I make a lot of mistakes.
I'm a pencil guy, look, see?
There you go.
Because you know why?
You know what that is? That means you're non-committal.
No, it doesn't mean that. It means I'm left-handed and I'm tired of getting ink all over my
Oh, well,
left
that's
hand.
that.
There you go.
All right, on roll call, Mr. Air.
Here.
We're going to excuse Rob here in a minute, and Susan is going to be late, but she said she would be here. Dr. Lewis,
Here.
Mrs. Rankin,
Here.
Mr. York.
Here.
All right, I need a motion and a second to excuse Mr. Bartlett.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Air,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Hi.
All right. Rob's out.
Okay.
All right, everybody looked at the council minutes. Any questions regarding council minutes from August the 14th meeting?
No, sir.
No?
Not here.
Randy? Good? All right, a motion and a second to accept the minutes, please.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Air,
Aye.
Dr. Lewis,
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin,
Aye.
Mr. York.
Hi.
All right, we'll accept those minutes. All right, starting in communications, we have Police Chief Hines' report, monthly report for month of July. Chief, do you have any comments or remarks regarding this report?
I do not regarding the report, just the reason it's late is I was on vacation, so I didn't get it in time for last.
Rub it in.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Kudos.
On vacation, all right. I
Yeah,
did have,
one other thing, Mayor, did you have something?
I had a question,
Okay.
yes. Under traffic tickets,
Yeah.
traffic enforcement under speeding, it looks like there's been a 50% decline in the number of tickets being written for speeding. Am I to assume that the travelers through this village are somehow obeying all our laws? I mean, what is do we have a reason for this?
I don't have a good answer for you on that, but I know the officers have told me that when they're running radar, it's not as frequent that they're catching the speeders as they did in the past, so I would assume you could probably say that's true, but then there's people on certain streets that will differ with me, but
Yes, yeah, very much so.
you know, they are out there and we are running the radar, so. But like you said, they're down, and you know, the enforcement, as you can see, is as far as the amount of citations is down anyway, but the reason for that, or the biggest reason for that, is the fact that, as you know, Mr. Mayor, we were down an officer for the whole year. I'm
Yes.
hoping to rectify that within the next couple of weeks. But we had Officer Lyons off on injury since before Christmas, and he has since retired. So we're finishing up our hiring
But the interviews
process.
are proceeding with the new,
I'm hoping within the next couple of weeks, we'll have somebody to fill that position.
okay.
Dude, last time I heard you were with 5. Is that still the case? Have you-
So we're down to 3.
They're down to 3.
Good.
Anybody else, any questions regarding Chief Hines' report? No? All right. Interim Fiscal Officer Rankin,
Yes.
do you wish to make
All the news
commentary?
that's fit to print. All 400 pages of it right here. No, I have nothing to add, but happy to field questions.
All right. I must say, you've done a very fine job here. It looks to be a very comprehensive report.
I can only put out what the wonderful people of the village put in.
Okay,
It's a compliment to Allison. And Chuck.
all right.
So just a quick, how far behind are we on, like, getting stuff from UAN entered? And the reason I ask this is we want to put together an analysis of the pool. What happened?
It's coming.
Okay, so,
So the transfer was, you're talking about the PayPal money?
correct.
The PayPal transfer happened. It did not show up in the July reports because it happened in August.
Right.
So it's posted. So when Kelly has the August
That's when we
monthly
get it.
reports, it will be in there.
So if we want to look at, get a snapshot of how we did with this season, probably mid-September or late September would be.
And the pool formally closes, what,
Monday?
Monday?
Okay?
A week from today?
Yes, and Randy, I can run an updated report on just the pool and tennis numbers. You want that?
Sure.
Okay.
Should we do that after the pool
Well,
is
we could,
closed?
You might want to wait.
yeah,
Yeah,
we
let's
could
have
probably
it
wait a
all.
couple of weeks and get it
Okay.
all.
Yeah.
I did meet with Mike, and he gave me a narrative
Right,
of his
right.
year in review, so,
Okay.
And I'm
man,
guessing
if you
it
want to
was-
get together on that, we can,
It was a good narrative?
Sure.
well, it was, he's such a young kid. Safety, cleanliness, and culture. And if you got a bunch of Harvard grads in here, they would probably say the same things as far as these are our goals for the year. So it was a very positive year for him.
Oh, yeah, I think we should be quite pleased with
Yeah,
what
I've heard
Mike has done
nothing but
down there,
good
you know,
remarks
considering
about
what he kind of walked in on. I think he's done a very fine job. All right, no other questions on, for interim fiscal officer Rankin? All right, moving on, Randy, you have the engineer's estimate, the Dale Park statuary estimate.
Yes, this was an addendum to our council committee report last time, and MTF simply wants to go out for bid on this project, and we don't have the money. You know, we're doing well, but we don't have the money. What they want to do is they want to bid it out, and actually, why don't I let you guys tell us if you'd like, as far as bidding it out in stages and looking at what you can get done.
Why don't we let them do that during
Okay,
permission to
all right.
address council?
All right, that's fair. So really, the end game, as far as I'm concerned, and hopefully the committee concurs, is to allow us to go out for bid to really get hard numbers of what this is, and can it be done in phases? And do we, probably the most important thing, do we need to make adjustments because we're way out of line of available funds and/or projected available funds?
Right. Okay. Well, I know we talked about this, and I do believe that the numbers seem to be coalescing around somebody's estimates here, and I know Chris and I know A359, you know, had contributed to these numbers. So probably the next step is to, well, we'll hear what you'll have to say first, of course, but legislation will have to be passed in order to allow Chris then to, you know, to start the
Go to
bidding
bid, right.
process.
And we had prepared that last council meeting, but we tabled it.
Yeah, yes,
The resolution.
the resolution.
Right.
Yeah. All right. All right, you have the letter that you can see there from Perry and Associates. This is regarding the audit letter, and, you know, there were a couple of things of note that I think there were minor things. Chuck, would you like to give us a?
Yeah, just if you look at the first one, this is an easy one to fix, the public records training. There was no evidence of anyone having taken the public records training, sunshine laws training. Let me hand these out to you. Every elected official is supposed to take that training at least one time during their term. Then I just took it on August 11th. Going to talk Joni, Allison, Chief, you need to take it, probably Vicky, Dan, but every department, every elected official should take the training. It's 3 hours. The sheet I just gave you, it's straightforward. There right there. Just the OhioAttorneyGeneral.gov is the website you go to. Scroll down and then click on Training and Education at the bottom. And then you want to click on Sunshine Laws when that page comes up, and that'll bring you to this schedule. And the next one is September 20th. There's a webinar on October 23rd and 11/29. Unless you want a road trip, there's one on September 28th in Middleport, Ohio. I'm not sure where that is, and one in Delaware, Ohio on November 16th. But it is a 3-hour webinar. It's not 2.5, it's not 2:45, it's 3 hours.
And are there questions at the end then to make sure that you've actually watched this thing?
This is the live
No,
webinar
tell 'em there
schedule.
Oh, this is the live,
This
the
is live.
Okay.
There are videos, but that you have to then take a test or whatever. I would suggest you just do the webinar.
Chief, what was the training that you arranged for us?
That was ethics.
That was ethics?
ethics,
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, this is the ethics is they'll come and do a presentation. It's about 45 minutes, maybe an hour. But this is a full, it's 3 hours.
Gotcha. Thank you
Yeah,
for
so-
flagging it for us.
But yeah, so you want to get it in before your term, and we need to have it hopefully by the next audit, which we have 2 years to get it done. We did the last 2 years, we already got the first one. And after you complete the training, if you let myself, Joni, or Allison know, because you don't get certificates.
Okay.
Well,
You get an acknowledgement, right?
you just go, we have to go and click on the date of the training, and it'll give you a list of everybody that attended. And it tells you, same thing, how long you attended for. So if you cut out early, they'll let you know. So, which made me nervous because
What
about
about
halfway
taking
through, my
naps?
computer crashed. So I had to turn it on. That's why, well, you usually be on here once. I'm on twice because I logged in twice, so.
Okay.
But because it's live, I mean, then essentially you better be prepared to sit there for 3 hours and do it, because you can't start it and stop it.
No, it's
Or
live. You'll
stop
get a
it,
break
start it.
about literally a halfway point, an hour and a half.
Yeah.
But it's, yeah. You can download the slides before you watch it. They'll give you all the links you need to go to. You've got to register for it, so.
Do you have to do it every term?
Once a term, yeah. So
Once
for
a
y'all
term.
elected, once every 4 years, yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you. That's helpful.
Matt has already completed his. It was,
Oh, the new guy.
The new guy, yeah.
When, what date do you remember what date it was?
Joni's got the
Joni
information.
has it? Okay.
It was-
all
It
right.
was like
I thought this was it.
July 20th, maybe.
Okay, well, yeah, if Joni's got, yeah, she can print it off.
Was it pretty painless?
Yeah, it's,
Well, they've already changed it from when I took it. Because when I took it, you could take 3 one-hour sessions,
okay, yeah.
just an hour at a time, and you could take it any time. And then the ethics, they'd already switched to the webinar, which you have to sign up and do it at the time of the webinar. So I did them both, but it was way easier before, because on the Sunshine Laws training, you just could do 1 hour, anytime you feel like it. It was very easy.
Yeah, there's video series, like, that's what you
Okay.
probably did, was a video series.
But,
That'll be
but
on
thi-
that.
but this going to a straight 3-hour session, I don't know what they're thinking to do that, because it's really hard to fit into, you know,
Yeah, workday.
people, work schedules and that kind of
I
thing.
think-
I mean, I'm
I think they're
retired,
either-
most people doing this kind of work
As you
are
check
not.
them, one, it'll either gonna be 9 AM to noon, or I think it's 1 to, or, I take it back, 1:30 to 4:30.
Okay.
Yeah, but boy, you got to kind of make a commitment to be ready to sit there and do it.
Yes.
Yeah, and if God forbid an interruption occurs, then it's start over, I guess.
Block your
They
schedule
don't
out.
know, they don't know. I'm not saying, I mean,
I
I took
know, it
notes, I was
seems to
there.
me he's got
Computer
a-
doesn't crash.
Is there a charge associated with taking it?
No. No, in fact, for folks playing along at home, if you want to go to the website, OhioAttorneyGeneral.com, you can sign up and take it just as a citizen.
Oh, that'd be
It's
nice.
out there, it's for anybody that wants to
Yeah.
take the training.
Okay.
But mandatory for us.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Oh,
Thank
okay.
you.
okay, great, thanks.
On it.
Thank you, Chuck, thank you.
What's the deadline? You were saying you're hoping by,
Well,
I like
wouldn't be a
deadlines.
rush for this year, because you still have, depends on what your terms are. But you want
Okay.
to get it done before you end your term.
Okay,
You want to make sure you have it, because we've got to put it in the folder for the auditors to come down that
gotcha,
that's been completed.
gotcha.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right.
Oh,
Maybe in Switzerland then.
All right, permission to address council. Who would like to go first? Schwartz? Yes. Please.
Yep.
Schmidt, I'm sorry, I said Schwartz, I meant Schmidt, I'm sorry.
I am actually here, when I saw the agenda, there is the program on, or a listing on Dale Park, Waldorf Park plan. I would first of all like to know what kind of plan that is. Secondly, I would like to know why the Waldorf is included in the name of the park. Okay. And I would take it from there then, okay, when I get answers.
Well, I assume you're talking about the Kleinger study for Dogwood Park that would in,
She's
I
talking
don't know
about,
what the plan is.
I think that she may be referring to the first item under Health and Rec.
that's right.
Yeah.
I see. Well, Dogwood Park is on there because, Dogwood Park is on there,
Which is-
correct?
It's the,
She's asking
That's
about
down.
why Waldorf Park.
see, that was from September of '22.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of the larger scheme of the plan for the centennial and things that we were going to be doing in all of the parks. Dogwood Park and Dale Park and Hopkins Park and a few others. And there was an element of it that was going to happen down, where the ball field is next to Waldorf, the big area, the big sort of what we call the bowl area that's down over the hill from the statuary. Originally there was talk that there might be some type of an amphitheater kind of a thing that would be built into the hillside along there. Well, I believe that is probably why that's, the Waldorf name is in there, because it references proximity.
Okay. It's confusing
Yeah.
because I thought it might be a name change.
No, no one's changing any names.
Okay. So maybe that is
I
not.
I think technically you're right, that is Dale Park. I think that's.
It is Dale
Dale
Park,
Park.
yes.
Yeah.
That is all
Yes.
Dale Park.
Then I wouldn't be so confused. if it's
Yeah,
still
we
there.
should change that.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, there are actually issues that a lot of people have with the Waldorf School.
Yes.
And I think maybe you're aware of it.
Yes.
And I was basically bringing that up because you have to earn, if your name is out there in the community.
Sure.
You have to earn that right to actually, have a say in things.
Sure.
And, okay, so that killed it. I can actually tell that to a few of my neighbors, okay?
And this, let me say that Mr. York and I met with we go over, at the start of school every year, and they have a new director over there over the last 2 years, I believe it is. And we sort of have a walk around with her. We talk about what, her plans are for the coming school year, what she plans to do in some of the other parks and things, like that. So that the idea being that we like to maintain a good channel of communication, with her, should issues come up. One of the things that we discussed was the parking lot. We're trying to make, we're discussing, what to be done with the parking lot, kind of thing. It's that type of a discussion.
And the traffic, and that will be, I would address it to the chief, actually, because traffic, and I have never seen a police car there, okay? But the traffic has become a nightmare. And I'm thinking about it when you look out, when they pick up, especially when they take the kids to school. I hope there won't be an accident, because it really is bad.
Sure.
It's a two-way street, Oak Street, okay? Two-way street, Chestnut Street. There's cars parked.
Mhm.
School buses come in. It's incredible. There is nobody there to really direct traffic or watch it. Other schools have people go out and help the kids across the street, all that kind of thing. This school doesn't do anything. I've never seen that.
Well, let me say, though, I do know that occasionally some of the teachers and the administrator, they are out there, directing traffic, during pickup and drop-off.
Yeah, well, okay, at the school.
Yeah.
But, not at the corners, not at the intersection, and that is it's really the dangerous part.
Yes.
The intersection.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for something to crash at one point, and, it's scary when you look out the window and you see that.
Sure.
And people stop there are lines waiting, going one way or another.
Right,
so
yeah, it's very congested during the
really-
pickup and the
Okay.
drop-off.
Mayor, can I respond?
Sure, Chief.
Yeah, as far as a crossing guard like the other schools have, that being a private school, they would need to fund that.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's, right.
But
And-
we're
and
funding
that's-
a lot for them, so they can.
And that's
fund
a
few
hard,
things, okay?
that's a hard sell, and it's a hard thing to do.
Definitely.
We had a crossing guard that just resigned, and so we're trying to hire somebody. Finding a crossing guard, it's tough
I
to
am
do.
sure, I'm sure.
Tough to
There
do.
are excuses and there are reasons for it, but still and all, if you have a conscience and you want the kids to be safe, you know.
Absolutely.
You do
we
that
want
kind
that.
of thing.
Yeah.
And that is my issue with the school, I'm sorry. They take advantage of everything that's given to them, but they don't give back, okay? Sorry, so I spoke my mind.
It's all right.
Thank you.
That's all right.
Okay, thanks for
That's
coming
why
out.
we're here. Thank you.
Sure, permission to address.
Sure, please.
Hi, my name's Paul Mace. Do I need to state my address? It's at
Sure
the
do.
6639 Elm Street. I am the president of the Mariemont Preservation Foundation. Our treasurer, Biff Black, is here, along with trustees Mary Beth York and Bob Van Stone. Happy to answer any questions I can. I think, as you all know, we've been working in a close partnership with the village, specifically with Mr. York, in terms of centennial projects. While there are a number of them, including the streetlights, our biggest two, of course, are the Dale Park, the statuary project, and then, of course, Dogwood Park. I know we agreed, along with the village, that we felt that, being that it's village property, that the village would be best to manage the statuary part and the Dale Park of the project. So we've raised significant funds for both, all the projects, but of course, we're still in the midst of fundraising. It's our understanding that the village now is, we have the estimates. I think we have all the construction drawings, so we're not managing it. We would love to see it go further and go out for bid. Knowing questions, of course, funds in terms of we could only pay for what we have. We've always imagined or envisioned that it would be done in stages. So in terms of the Dale Park as an example, the primary goal was to cover the statuary. It's what all the experts say needs to be done if we want to preserve the family statuary for ongoing. We are not managing the project. That is an example of the first stage that we would see happening, and then as we raise money, we could see other stages of the product or the projects through. But that's my statement. I'm happy to answer any questions or to my fellow board members if they want to add in.
I think one of the questions that might arise, I tried to raise this issue, I don't know whether it was last week or the week before, in that, about going out for bid. You sort of want to go out for bid knowing basically at least you're going to be able to complete and pay for a certain segment at least of the project. Otherwise, I would think anyone, now maybe Susan, I think maybe disagreed with me on this, but I would think anyone wishing to bid on the project would want to know the capacity of whether or not, am I just blowing smoke here and giving you a number, or are you actually going to build this thing? You know what I'm saying? So I think in that regard, maybe a conversation needs to take place, about
Which part we do when?
what part, are we gonna segment the bid, or are we gonna, bid the entire project? I think some of these would be particulars that we might wanna, work out.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think that, Mr. Holloway and my understanding, Mr. Ertl, are the ones managing the project. So while I would agree with you, I think we could sit down, but we would need your partnership because the village is now managing.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and this will be a partnership, kind of a thing, yeah. I mean, Biff, would you like to join in?
If I can.
Sure.
Say the same real quick. Biff Black, the treasurer, number 5 Spring Knoll Drive. And when we're talking about parts of the project, I want to make it clear that, the Kleiner's estimate had 3 phases, 3 alternatives. Yeah. And we're really focused right now strictly on alternative 1, which is just the area up around the statuary, some hardscape and landscaping.
But to include the roof?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
it does not include like the amphitheater,
Yeah,
some of the stuff that has been talked about.
Right,
Not
right.
even a discussion.
Sure.
And I think I'm here to support, I mean, we've got this resolution that was tabled. It's already been passed to go get bids for the project as approved by the ARB. And I think that's what we need to do. And when we requested to get the engineer's estimate, went back to A359, Kleinger's, and said, can you refresh this? Because it was almost a year old. It was September 2022. And the response from the guy was, why would you want to refresh in the bids when you've got the refresh the estimates when you got the bid package, get the real thing? So
Right.
I think that's the way we need to go. Otherwise, the estimates are somebody's best guess.
Yeah, right, I agree.
And as
Yeah.
far as doing it in phases, given A359 status and the people that they're going to, and Rod is be the first one to tell you, give us some names of some people here. Don't make us do this, the hunt all over by ourselves.
Sure.
They're gonna know that this is a legitimate project, that A359 is not gonna ask them to bid on this just to give the village some kind of numbers to work with.
Yeah.
And, we have raised a significant amount of money, probably enough, probably to cover the whole project at this point.
Okay. Well, as I said, I think, like I said, we sort of tabled that resolution to basically go ahead with it at last meeting, I believe it was. And, now that we've got these new numbers and we sort of have your thoughts and feelings here, how about, does anybody else have questions here?
Biff, I voiced a concern about going out for bid immediately at the last meeting. And again, let me reinforce, it's not because I don't want the project to move forward or that I want to be anything other than helpful. But when we seek bids from contractors, we want the best contractors. We want the top quality contractors, and if they receive a request for, a bid package, one of those key things that they're gonna look at is they're gonna look at how does this fit in with what we're doing, what we have booked for next year, or the following year, whatever it was. So if we had some indication of what the proposed schedule would be, that's something if that exists, I haven't heard it yet, but could we at least come up with a preliminary estimated schedule for the project so that when these bidders are looking at it, they know, oh, this is serious. They're gonna have the money and they're looking for a bid by then, contract, there's just a basic project schedule outlined of what we would expect. Is that something that we're at a stage where we could do that?
I would say this is exactly the reason that we approached Randy about, and Rod, can you guys do this? I mean, we're a foundation board for the, of all volunteers. And my concern all along was, as I look around the foundation, who thinks we're going to manage this project? That's where, Rod's expertise in the village. So I would kind of defer that question to Rod.
Well, and I think a missing piece to what we talked about at the last meeting is that it's the first I've heard that MPF has the funds to move forward with the project. And that's something that's new information that I'm hearing for the first time tonight.
Okay, well.
So that's a big deal.
It is a big deal.
Randy, can you speak to that a little bit? My understanding, how much do we have for the project?
You raised, about 1.2 that's been raised. I think there's some committed to next year. There's $133,000 that already came over here. There's money in that numbers that, the $35,000 that we took out of permanent improvement. There's $30,000 in there that is the matching grant. It was, what's left, close to 900,000?
Yeah, well, we have probably paid, we've kind of got the Mariemont Preservation Foundation checking account, which is, by the way, it's not mixed with our operating funds. It's a separate checking account we had to open, or we chose to open. So I've got my hand on that. Some of the stuff that the village is doing, I don't have as clear a hand. I count on Randy to keep me informed on that. But between the grant to the village for 131.3 and what we've paid to A359, we're close to $200,000 we've already paid out for architects and Kleinger's and people like that.
So how much do we have for?
So the bottom line is there is restricted and unrestricted.
Right.
So the restricted, you have funders that say, yes, I will give you money, but it is
Yeah.
for Dogwood Park. So
Yeah.
for our purposes, you gave me, I'm sorry, you gave me the number, I was.
We raised, mostly Randy, to give credit where credit is due, who's been wonderful with dealing with private individuals and other foundations, had restricted over 300,000 in restricted funds, restricted to
Yeah, close
Dogwood
to
Park.
four, it's
Well,
390 or? Yeah.
plus we have a commitment.
Yeah, oh yeah,
a
we're
further
including
commitment.
commitments. Because most,
Yeah,
you-
right,
they'll
that's
respect
gap
commitments.
fund, yeah.
Which puts
Standard.
us almost exactly at 400,000.
Well, okay.
No,
just
wait, are we talking
well, hold on.
Dogwood
You're
or
saying-
Dale?
Wait a minute. What, you said restricted. Restricted to what? Dogwood or the
Yes.
statuary?
Yes, Dogwood. I'm
Dogwood.
sorry, we didn't
There
clarify
are
that.
no funds restricted to Dale Park.
So
We-
Dale Park
We
has-
had some funders that say, I love parks,
Yeah.
I will give to a park.
Okay, so all right, so we have no funding right now restricted to Dale Park, which is why you were going after, there was a foundation, I believe, in Chicago that perhaps could underwrite the construction, correct?
Well, that was what the MPF group was doing. I think you're talking about the French Foundation, the stuff that,
A grant writing committee discovered, or somebody smart enough to figure out that the statuary over there, instead
Yeah.
of thinking of it as a park, think of it as a art.
Yeah, it was an
Suddenly we got-
amazing presentation.
And there's not only artwork people,
Yeah.
there's groups out there specifically for French art.
Yeah.
Which is what that is, and they're all excited about this.
What I am operating under the assumption of, because I was very excited about the presentation. I thought it was the work you guys have done is incredible. My understanding is we needed to raise some funds to be able to pay for the vision that you guys laid out. So we needed a budgeted estimate to be able to do that. Typically, to do a turnaround for fundraising, sometimes you can do it in 6 months, but it's typically a 12-month turnaround for fundraising, especially at the degree and the vision that you guys laid out. So my understanding, the first thing I want to clarify is, I don't think we have the funds to pay for the vision that was laid out before us for the statuary in particular. Am I wrong in that?
May I clarify, when you say the vision that we saw, are you talking about the presentation that was put together by, is it A359, with all the graphics and the,
Yes.
is that the presentation you're referring to?
I
Just to be
am.
clear?
The
Okay.
entire
the
project.
finished
Finished
vision.
project.
Right.
Yeah.
We don't have those funds. We do not.
We are, I could easily see how we do have those funds. We have on hand, and we can, $565,000,
$565,000 in our unrestricted.
unrestricted fund,
Your
unrestricted.
unrestricted
We-
fund.
We called it that because if it exceeds what we need for Dale Park, then it's unrestricted to Hopkins or to,
What I saw, and I could be very wrong, so I apologize in advance if I am, I saw a $2 million project. I did not see a $565,000 project.
well, I wasn't, in addition to that, we know that we're just getting ready to write grants for this artwork, this French artwork.
Yeah.
Who knows how much that'll be?
I think so that's what's driving, I think, what I think needs to happen is you guys need a estimate of some kind to write those grants. And then once we know if those grants are coming through, which I think there's a good chance, that's when you send it out to bid. So it's just a matter of step by step. So we need the engineering estimates to get those grants in. Once we hear about those grants, and they will initially be pledged, it won't be an instant check, probably. I'm not familiar with the foundation, but likely that's the way it works. So then we can go out to bid, because we'll have a general sense of how much this costs. We'll have a general sense of how much we have, and then we can send it out to bid. So it's just, that's what I recommend, is you guys need money or you need something to be able to apply for those grants.
I think the difference where we've seen, again, is working with A359, the village, is that the project could be done in segments. So even if we did not have the full money, right, to complete the full project, that with the bids, we could actually say, hey, we can do this piece based on the money that we have now, which actually in turn could help us raise more money, because then people see progress.
That's a great point.
Knowing that, hey, we may not be able to finish the project, and we can't spend a check, money that we don't have, but we should go ahead and start if we can work with contractors that are willing to do, like, we're willing to pay for this piece. I'm just making up a number.
Yeah.
It's gonna cost $400,000 to build the structure of the statuary. We can write that check.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to the other work, we'd have to wait until we raise the money.
My recommendation is we apply for that grant, we see if we get it. If we don't, then we go to what your plan is. Now, typically, when you get something done, it's harder to raise money, but it can be done. So, I mean, this is my background, is fundraising, which is why I know about this stuff. But that said, that would be my recommendation, is that the project should not get frozen in time because a foundation declines us. But we should go forward, take the engineer's estimate, see what we can do with that. If we get rejected, that's when we come back and say, what can we get done? And start phasing it in that way. We're still going to likely have to phase it depending on how the foundation pays out its support. But this way, when is the foundation deadline?
You're talking about
No
the,
deadline.
what it's called, the French artwork? Is that?
When is that
What,
deadline?
our foundation or, no?
Excuse me, the grant that we're going after to help underwrite
I
this,
think
when
it's
is that?
very preliminary, and we don't
Yeah.
have, like, our grant writing committee is just starting to contact groups and be in touch with folks that might be
Yeah.
interested. Yeah.
And the third,
Yeah,
Important.
Okay.
we've only received the numbers.
the other important
the
element
estimates,
here, which
yeah.
I was kind of like, I didn't get to yet, is that Mariemont MPF has not made a contribution to the Centennial yet. It's not because we're not supporting it.
Right.
We've discussed how to go about that. And I think the feeling is, we're going to be, in many cases, we'll be the gap filler as necessary.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll be $25,000, it might be $100, don't
Right.
know. And to Paul's point about doing things in phases here, I happen to be holding the budgetary estimate that A through 59 and Rod put together. And here's probably almost $100,000 in like deciduous trees and plant beds. I mean, yeah, they'll be parked, but certainly they can be put off. We may have to put them off because it's the wrong season to plant or something. So there's things that we can do in phases. But the thing that I keep coming back to, it seems to me that the head scratcher to me is like the guy from A359 said, why do you want an estimate? You've got bid packages. Go find out what it really is. Because this estimate here, I would say, and I think Rod could agree with me, is inflated in many ways. For one thing, it's got some wrong figures in here. It's got $70,000 in here for A359. We've already paid 50 of that. So that's wrong. And some of the other risk and contingency numbers at 20% probably will not turn out to be the right numbers.
I'm so, what's the total estimate conflated and all that you have?
This one we got here from them, bottom,
930, okay.
Yeah, so it's this sheet here.
They just told us all along, like, we'll provide you our best guess.
Yeah.
But we're not the contractors.
Right.
So we can
Totally
only
get that.
kind of give you a ballpark figure of what we think it might cost, but at the end, and they try to, I think, bid on the high end, so of course, you don't want to, hey, it's gonna cost you 300,000, and you find out it cost you 600.
So if we,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Oh,
Do you have that?
probably, this,
It was in the packet.
Okay.
This.
okay.
We'll hand it over to her, in case she doesn't have it.
So, are you saying you feel like you have the money for,
yeah,
The
that's
full
exactly what
project.
I'm saying. I think we've got the money to get the thing covered.
That's
And-
assuming that all the Thomas Jamry money goes to Dale Park. Yes?
That's correct.
Well, that's true, that's true.
Well,
Gotcha.
but you
That-
said.
Let me rephrase that all unrestricted money.
The 500,000.
All the private donations, everything, all of that, that's not dedicated to Dogwood Park goes to Dale Park.
Which is
okay.
500,000 something, correct?
565.
565.
565.
So I'm following, you've got unrestricted 565. The estimate is 931, so there's still about a $400,000 gap. give or take.
I think that Biff has a really good point, that when Rod put that together, this is a number that I can be comfortable with, that it's not.
Well,
gonna get
yeah,
this
and she
sticker
made the
shock.
point about the 50,000.
Right, worst case, it's kind of like worst case scenario.
The contingency and risk factor that
Right.
put in, and I can tell you that the landscaping numbers, those are very robust numbers, to say the least, as far as what that'll really cost. But, so, I think you've answered this question, is that, I mean, we're getting to a point where this unrestricted project funding, I mean, we've already invested $200,000 in the architecture and plans for this park, and then we have $565,000 unrestricted. I mean, we're at some point in time, and that point in time is coming very, very soon. There's going to have to be a decision made as to where that unrestricted funds money goes. Does it go? How much goes to the Dogwood Park project? How much if any, how much goes to the Statuary Park project? And who decides that? And I'm not putting you on the spot. It's a general question. Who decides that? Do we decide that as village council? Do we in consultation with MPF?
Funds are Mariemont Preservation.
Yeah, they're the ones who
But-
work for the grant.
I mean, we would,
But we work very closely, and we feel like it's a joint conversation, but if it came down, who's making the decision, it has to be the Mariemont Preservation, but we are working very closely and have been with Bill and Mr. York, so I think it is, it's a partnership that we see, not a, hey, our way or your way. It's
But
together.
if we feel that we have, if MPF feels that they have the funding, let's say that, and the expectation is that estimate that Rod put together is probably $200,000 fat until we get real numbers. But that's just a guesstimate. That would be more consistent with where the original plans were and so forth. If MPF is confident that they have that funding between unrestricted funds, the gift that you plan to make, plus additional fundraising that comes in, whatever that may be, I think we're saying that the bid package could say that we would be ready to start construction on this in 2024 then, right?
yeah.
And that's what you're asking for?
To be honest, that's the question at hand, I
Right.
think, right?
I mean, I think it goes back to the phases, like, I don't know, what, I would think we could be, yes, but do we have a bid package that tells me what money is it gonna cost versus what
Right.
it is? I mean, I'm being realistic, I need to see it, but I think we've raised.
But you gotta get it to see it, I mean.
Yes,
yeah.
like if I don't
Right,
have it, I don't
right,
know.
so-
Yeah, so I'm just being
Right.
upfront, like, if the
Yeah.
big package comes back and it's double this, then the answer changes.
Different conversation.
Yeah. Or if it comes back and it's right on, or if it's, 75%, it changes the conversation.
So,
You asked the question that we've all been, Randy and us have been, I wouldn't say dancing around, but
Yeah, it's the elephant in the room.
it's the elephant in the room. How are we going to decide this? And my thought is, if you got honest brokers at the table and trusted partners, say, well, we may have to, we're a little bit short here. Maybe we'll put off our landscaping here for another year, and you may have to do something over there, and
well,
we'll
and
make it
that's the
work.
question. I'm wondering, because that's what I'm not clear of, the opportunity cost. Because my understanding is we were approving something to help fundraise. You cannot pay for things you've already paid for typically in fundraising. So that plan I would not support. But I would support if it was in everybody's best interest and there was agreement, right, that this is where the funds go and we have them. That's a totally different conversation than us fundraising. So it feels like it's just a little bit more additional conversation about what is the best use of the unrestricted dollars. And then, I do think we need some sort of thing to start applying for money. We don't necessarily have to pursue that if it's decided that all the unrestricted funds go there. But, one of the things that is important to look at is this a project that's likely to get funded? Because then the unrestricted dollars could be allocated to less fundable but important projects, right, in the village.
No, ma'am.
No, I mean, it would only go to centennial projects.
No, that's what I'm saying, though. Yeah,
To
yeah. it's-
centennial only, I think you're
Yeah,
saying.
totally clear on that. To other centennial projects that are less fundable, than this particular project. Or it could be that this is the most important project, but it does feel like that is a conversation worth having and taking a moment, because it's a strategic question. If this is a highly fundable project, you want to pursue funding for this. If it is not a highly fundable project, you want to use unrestricted for it. And I don't know if we are in the position to answer that question. I think you guys in the trenches doing the work need to take a look at that. But that would be my recommendation.
It sounds to me, though, from what I'm hearing here tonight, I mean, they've already basically decided how they're funding this project. I mean, they have 530, what it was, 560
565.
in unrestricted funds that they feel are their funds to fund the project with.
Right.
And then they are, if I'm hearing them correctly, they are willing then to also make a large contribution out of MPF's private funds, not raised funds, they're private funds you've already got, to additionally move the project along. Maybe I'm not hearing this correctly.
I mean, I
thought
think
that's what
that's correct, and I think it's fluid in the sense so too, like, if we did get a grant, right, I'm just making a number up, and NPF was able to let a grant for the statuary, it was $300,000.
Yeah.
That enables us to take unrestricted funds and put it back towards
Yeah.
other projects.
Sure, of course.
Yeah, and I don't know how likely these funders are, but if they are likely, we are leaving money on the table by approaching it this way. We're leaving lots of money on the table.
But are we, I mean, I guess we're not till I think it's going to construction, right? Like, I think if Rod and Holloway and Chris Earl are able to get a bid, it enables us to know more realistic of what we're doing with it. I mean, I may be wrong, we're not managing the project, but we could get bids without actually committing to the project. Like, we would know then what we have versus saying we're gonna get a bid and we're moving forward on this date. I don't know if we know until we get an
But yeah,
actual.
the bid would have to be evaluated clearly. I mean,
Yeah.
like I said, because if it comes back double what you thought it was gonna come, that's a whole different conversation. But we can't have that conversation until
We don't
the
have
bid.
some right. Well, and I know that Chris has done with the streets, where we've gotten a bid, and then we can do addendums to the bid. Stay with the same contractor and get an addendum. So sure, I'm all for doing the big package, getting the best price we can, but that doesn't seem to be practical in this application. So I think if we try to do everything at once, it's never gonna happen. So, I mean, maybe we come to a consensus, to your point, covering the statutes is your priority. And listen to priorities and saying, okay, this is what we can afford now, let's go out to bid for this particular amount. And I have to disagree with the bit about not being able to fundraise. I'm with you, I think people see momentum, and they're like, hey, I like this, I'm gonna pitch in.
And there's always room within even this here to, things come back and you say, well, we're $50,000 over here, and I don't know where that's going to come from. And, well, then you start looking at what grade of slate are we using,
Right.
And there's things like that and that's where somebody who knows how to manage construction projects becomes invaluable. And
Yeah.
so there's ways to get it done, I think.
So, Randy, you've been quiet. I want to,
I'm a little torn because I have great respect for
Yeah.
NPF. When Thomas D. Emory Memorial sent the letter of notification, it was to the Mariemont Centennial Commemoration. It was not to Dale Park. So I agree with you. The best time to raise funds is before you put a spade in the ground. So we've not pursued this whole art thing yet. There's not been one grant written for that. I've personally written 26 grants. Sent out 75 letters of interest or of inquiry. So I want to move forward with this, but I'm afraid that if we move too far, and maybe we won't, maybe when we do this, we say, let's not start this till fall of '24 or whatever, and that gives us, the runway to raise the funds. So I can understand that the Thomas D. Emory Memorial, all that money, but I don't believe that the people who donated to the Mariemont Centennial that did not specify where it goes, I don't believe all that money should go to Dale Park. And I think that's what you're saying. I think that should be
The
split.
565.
Well, no, 300 of that is Thomas D.
Yeah.
Emory, right? Because we have 200 left. Is that where we are? Something like that?
yeah.
I'm not sure how you're doing this. I'm not sure if I
So
follow you
you've got
entirely.
565 and unrestricted.
Right.
Are you including all of Thomas D'Amory?
Yes.
Okay, so there's only 65 that was from private donations in this number.
Well, I think,
Let's just say non-Thomas D'Amory.
well, I mean, I think you have to,
Well, we've already,
you've already spent money, so that, you know, there's not 500 left to Thomas J. Even if you take the money that's coming in, or $500,000 donation, I mean, you know, we've spent quite a bit of money already between
Yeah.
the two projects, I think.
Um,
131,000 for Dogwood Park, and I believe we signed a contract for A359. You're my the treasurer, like, I think we signed a contract for about $86,000, and we've spent maybe
contract was for
66.
60,000.
60,000,
And we've paid 50. But I think there's,
So
I don't have this-
This 565 unrestricted, that includes all of the Thomas D'Amory?
yes.
Okay.
But I think. and-
So and again, I don't know, and you know, what is that number of private individuals that have donated to the Centennial of this unrestricted number? Because if I do have, as you know, I do have one private individual that is restricted.
Right.
But, you know, everyone else who gave, you know, when they gave to the Centennial,
Yeah.
right now, it looks like all that money's going to Dale Park, and I don't think it should. I
Well,
think that should be divided up.
Is it okay to ask that you guys kind of sit down, to your point, and just make sure, get on the same page, whatever that is? Like, I don't think a bid does anything wrong. I mean, it's a lot of work that we might have to redo. So I do think there is a strategic question of whether to start the construction or not if we don't have those funds, but that's for another day, perhaps. So, but it does feel like, you know, because I was voting on something to go pursue grants with, which is why the engineering bids or estimates seem totally appropriate. But it sounds like there's a bigger question here that my colleague brought up so eloquently, which is, you know, how is the unrestricted determined? And it would be nice to just take a little time to have that conversation, and then if we can be unified, pursue it that way. But it doesn't preclude us going out to bid. I mean, that's not.
Would you be agreeable then that we had the first reading of the resolution to authorize going out to bid, and then we tabled that? Should we take that off the table and proceed with the second and third reading over the normal course of time? And that would take at least a month or two more council meetings. During that interim time, then this discussion could take place so that we're not, you know, hindering the ability or the process to go out to bid.
So it's tabled right now, so we
would
took it
take
off
it
and we're on
off
the
the
first
table.
reading tonight.
We had the first
We
reading
had the
last
first
Okay,
week.
then we tabled.
Yeah,
So
the
now
second
we're on to
reading
the
tonight.
second reading,
have the second
which is
reading.
the discussion,
Yes.
which would be,
Sort of had.
yeah.
And then we
Well-
would have the third reading September the 11th. And then there were, technically, I guess we'd have to wait another 30
days to
days
launch, yeah.
but during that time, Chris could be doing what preliminary work he would have to do to put the bid package together. But that would allow for almost, I don't know, what would that be, 6 weeks that this discussion could take place. Do you have a comment?
I would just say that makes an abundance of good sense. But I don't know what the hesitation is to do it that way.
I'm good with it.
I have no hesitation.
I mean, there's no doubt there's work to be done still just to get the bid packages ready.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very
exactly.
comfortable with that, yeah.
Exactly. Because what I'm really suggesting here, sort of to Susan's point, I mean, if we sort of keep it frozen up here while the discussion, then we're really going to be dragging our feet on this. I'm just of the belief that no good decision is ever going to get made about this until we know, we get a bid, until we know what we're talking about.
Well, and I think, to be clear, I thought we needed things to pursue funding,
Well,
which is what I was voting
that
for.
can
This is
happen
a
in
different
parallel, can it not?
conversation. So it's a very different conversation for me and I'm comfortable with your approach, but that's the distinction that I was making. I thought we needed something to pursue a grant.
Well, I think that's a big part of it, and to Matt, to your question, I totally agree with you. You know, maybe, you know, we don't want to be unfair with these contractors that are gonna bid on this, you know, because they'll quit coming back.
Right.
So I don't know how you structure that and how you say, you know, we really anticipate breaking ground, you know, spring of '24, fall, of whatever that time is. So I think at some point we'll get to that.
Right.
And
Yeah.
to me is, you know, I want to know what the number is, and I have a lot of respect, as you guys all know, for Rod. I'm not, and Chris, certainly, I'm not sure how close these numbers are. We could be surprised
Either way.
dramatically
Either
either
way.
way.
Well,
You know,
and-
I'm an eternal optimist, and I'm thinking that, I still believe we'll get all this done.
And from a fundraising perspective, you want to use unrestricted really strategically to leverage fundraising for other funds. And so, you know, this is a separate conversation, but I do want to carve out a little time for you guys to talk about that, because we don't want to leave money on the table that we could use to invest in the centennial projects, just to be very clear. And so those unrestricted dollars go very far in helping us leverage other dollars. But if we spend them all in one place, then we are not able to leverage them as effectively. But that's a separate conversation than the bids, and I'm excited about the work you guys did. I want to see it happen, and if you guys are, I'm comfortable with your approach.
Yeah, and the other, if I may, the other thing is, you know, for a lot of these matching and all that, they insist, and we'll have this conversation later this meeting, they insist that you have the money. So if we're gonna go for a matching grant, we have to have it. So,
Yeah.
and I'm not sure if some of these are matching or not, but I will tell you, in my experience, that's the best way to get to the end, to the finish line.
All
So
right,
this
so-
grant, I'm sorry, I just wanted to, question regarding this grant. It's the French artwork grant. Do I have the wording right on that? But you're saying you're very preliminary stages on that.
We are. I mean, we have a grant writing committee, and they've been in touch with several folks,
Yeah.
you know, that we should be thinking this from an art perspective, because
Right,
that is
right.
what the statute
Sure.
is.
I think it's
So I
great.
think it's promising, but it's early, so I can't say like, hey, we have this foundation and we're going after a
Right.
$300,000
Right.
grant. I think they're in early stages of finding the right people to talk to based on this unique statuary or statue that we have in the village. It's one of a kind.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you might get to a place where we have to fish or cut bait. Totally get that. But we do want to see if we are leaving money on the table and part of this process.
I think it's a brilliant, positioning on this art thing. I think
Yeah.
I think it could be really big. I don't know, but I think it's possible.
That's a
That
good-
niche
good
could really
approach.
work.
All right, so then let's have, from someone, please, let's have a motion to, this is to untable to authorize the solicitation of bids for the Dale Park improvement.
So moved.
Let's do
Second.
it
Wait.
this way.
Oh, take back.
I think that this was just are we at the portion of the meeting with permission to address council?
Yeah.
Okay. Once you've heard what they had to say, let's move on, pay the bills, and get through
Oh,
the resolutions.
Okay, and then we'll do it there?
Right.
All right. Sorry for being hasty.
Thanks, Ed.
Does anyone else wish to address council?
Please.
No? Okay. All right, motion, any question regarding the bills, please?
Motion to pay the bills?
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayers?
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
Let me just quickly say you'll notice the two items here on the motion to pay the bills. There's the repair for the street light repair and the fire hydrant, which totals about $6,500. I personally talked to the insurance company today, and we should be getting that money.
Oh, great.
Good job.
And was that the same?
This was
How
for
many
this was for
accidents?
the accident at Wooster and Oak.
Oh, I know where it is, but weren't there 2 accidents?
There were, only one was insured.
Oh,
Yes, yes,
good mankind.
yes. All right,
Committee reports.
I think we only have one committee report, am I correct? Kelly,
What is it?
I got mine.
got yours? Yes. Do you wish to read it?
Oh, I would absolutely be thrilled. What's my options?
They're limited.
I don't have any. Allison?
Read quickly.
Public Works and Service Committee met on August 23rd at 4 p.m. In attendance were Committee Chairperson Kelly Rankin, Committee Member Rob Bartlett, Committee Member Randy York, Village Engineer Chris Ertl, Village Administrator Chuck Barlow, and Mayor Brown. First topic of discussion was to decide which street should be recommended for application for the MRF, the Municipal Road Fund grant. Please see attached memo from Village Engineer for detail regarding the eligible roads in your packet. It was noted that should Pocahontas be selected as the MRF grant recommendation, all the construction costs of the Pocahontas rehab would be covered by grants. The committee recommends selecting Pocahontas Avenue for the MRF grant application. Also discussed was the trash and recycling service for 2024. The contract with our current provider, Rumpke, has a one-year option with a 3% increase from the current year, which would raise the annual amount from $295,146 to $304,038 in 2024. The committee recommends continuing service with Rumpke for 2024. Legislation for the MRF grant will need to be passed on emergency in order to submit by the August 31st deadline. Respectively submitted, Kelly Rankin, Rob Bartlett, Randy York.
All right, you've heard the report, a motion and a second to accept.
So moved.
Second.
All right, any discussion regarding this? Fairly straightforward. Rumpke's cutting us, I think, of being, well, I don't know, I mean,
Yeah, I do.
3% reasonable increase. Any thoughts? No?
No, we recommended it because I think that's the best deal we're
I think
gonna
it's our
get.
best option. All right, on roll call, Mr. Ayer.
To accept the report? Is that what we're?
We had a motion and a second already.
Yes.
Yes,
Aye.
this is to accept the report, yes. Yeah. Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis?
Aye.
Ms. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right, we'll do that. Oh, and by the way, I'm going to be putting into Rob's committee, Finance Committee, to evaluate the 3% increase and see how we're going to get that adjusted on the water bill. All right, where am I? I think that was the only. Offices will be closed Monday, September the 7th, or 4th, September the 4th, in observance of Labor Day.
That's a week from today.
I know, can you believe it?
Wow.
I know. Where'd the summer go? All right, second item in miscellaneous, this is the discussion regarding the land water conservation grant for Dogwood Park. Mr. York, would you like to lead off?
I'm just going to how this came about. Infrastructure needs. At that meeting, the mayor Chris Dalton. Chris Dalton is the Deputy Chief of Staff for Congressman Landsman, and asked us to apply for the community project funding. On March 28th, this is all in 2023, the funding was announced. We did not receive any money, and if you recall, that was when they made the big announcement from the Brent Spence Bridge about all of that. On April 13th, Chris Dalton first sent me the information on the Land and Water Conservation Fund, and he said, this is perfect for what you're trying to accomplish in Mariemont. Him and I had been in a lot of contact, and this was the one that he really thought was great for our park rehabilitation project. He also, on May 9th, sent me information and set up a conference call with HUD, and asked me to work with the Hamilton County Planning and Development, which we've already been doing, for the community development block grants. On May 22nd, I met with our Hamilton County Planning and Development Program Manager, April Galili. She suggested that we develop a 3-year community development block grant. I put together a proposal for that, and I sent that to this finance subcommittee, which is Kelly and Rob. That is due, I think, on November 28th of this year. On their calendar, it says that it would be November 1st when they would send details of that. I also heard from Greg Lansman's office that they want to write a letter of recommendation for when we put in that proposal. On June 15th, I received an email from Steve Johns. Steve Johns is with Hamilton County Planning and Development, and he alerted me of this program where an MPA, a Management and Public Administration program, and this one is at NKU, would help write a grant. I called him and he said, Randy, we specifically thought about helping you guys with this Land and Conservation Fund grant, and that's why we've contacted you. On June 26th, at a council meeting, I presented this proposal, and I have the minutes here. From Council Member Randy York, MPA Program Partnership Application Draft. Mr. York said this is one of the grants that Mr. Dalton from Greg Lansman's office thought would be appropriate for the park renovation as part of the Centennial. This program works with an MPA program who will help write the grant. It is an ODNR grant with a 50% match. It is a land and water conservation grant. He has completed the application and needs council approval to submit. He feels the village is a perfect candidate. Council agreed to move forth with the program, and Mr. York will submit the application. That was on June 26th in a council meeting. On June 27th, I submitted the application. On July 27th, I had lunch with Representative Cedric Denson. He is our state representative. I had prepared a one-pager for that meeting on Mariemont pool improvements. I reviewed that with Mayor Brown. Mayor Brown made an update to it because I asked for $322,000. I asked for $332,115, and he suggested I ask for $350,000. So I did that. So I had prepared that, and the mayor had reviewed it, and I presented it to State Representative Cedric Denson. As you know, this is the year when the capital appropriations come up, and that comes through Cedric Denson. Representative Denson agreed to support our project, and he actually gave me some really good direction and guidance on which way to go, and at some point with our next Economic Steering Committee with Envision, Environment, we can discuss that. On August 16th, I received an email from Steve Johns that we were selected to partner with Northern Kentucky University on this MPA program. On August 23rd, the mayor and I met with Darren Wilson, who is the professor of this class, and he asked for that meeting because his classes started the next day and he wanted to meet with us.
August
23rd. The mayor was in attendance at that meeting, and we discussed with him the process for applying for that Land Water Conservation Fund grant. The next day, I received a phone call from the mayor asking me to suspend the agreement with NKU and not participate in this program.
Well, just to put it on, I said just put it on hold until further discussion could be had regarding.
Well, if I may, my recollection was that, is I said, I believe this is a council decision and not.
Right.
You asked me to call Darren.
Right.
And I
Put it
said,
on- right.
that's not a good idea. I'd like to discuss this first. So I guess, we have to decide tonight if we're going to move forward with this program. And maybe that leads into a bigger conversation of the Centennial and what we're doing, and if we're all aligned on what we're doing. I will tell you that it's been gratifying, very gratifying, being involved with this. Yesterday, I spent 2 hours at my booth, and I didn't leave. I really didn't leave at all. And I probably talked to 50 people. And they were delighted and thankful with what we're doing. And I will tell you, the other thing that's really gratifying is when you meet with these funders and when you meet with these government organizations, their faces light up when you talk about Mariemont. They really appreciate our vision, they respect our passion, and they really love what we're trying to accomplish, and they want to help. And I think that it's not a coincidence that this came from the Hamilton County Planning and Development, and on the front page of the grant, it says this is to support community development block grants. So I think that's not a coincidence. We're thinking big on this centennial. I know that. I have a habit of doing that. But if we're ever going to think big, this is our best excuse. This is our best excuse to do it. The other thing that's really interesting is out of this dialogue and this conversation with these government agencies and private funders, I mean, you and I have had 3 conference calls with 3 different green organizations in the past week and a half, well, I think, let's say 2 weeks, and every one of them said, you guys are on the right track, you're well ahead of the curve, and this is the perfect time to do this. You know, this sort of grant grew out of these conversations. On December 13, 2022, I sent an email to our Public Works Committee about the SORTA grants. We just got $572,000 last week because of that. So I think we're on the right track with this. I think this is the right thing for the village. I know that you guys wanted to do this for the pool, but unfortunately in their procedure guide, it says discrimination based upon residence is prohibited. So if we want to not do this, and it's an annual thing, they've been doing this since 2017.
This being the LWC.
Yeah, this has been done since 2017. And just like, and Matt, you may attest to this, because, you know, when you look at the Clean Ohio Trails Fund or the Nature Works Fund, which is also ODNR, they say it's an annual program. They don't say if it's going to end. And so they don't say this with this grant either. I know they've done it since 2017, and there's no doubt that it will move forward. The other thing I think about with this is how much, I know that I learned a lot reviewing this SORTA grant and our grading and what happened. I really believe strategically, we know exactly how to position our SORTA grants moving forward. Because based upon the grading, and I've got some ideas of what I saw and how we could potentially do that every year. So my recommendations, it's gonna be a big project. I mean, I've been thinking about this since, and putting together notes and all of that since I got word about this. And bottom line is I respectfully request that we stick with this. Applying for the application was approved to council. I really believe it would really damage our reputation if we go back and say, we changed our mind. I know we agreed to apply for it, we don't want to do it.
Let me ask you, Randy, at the lunch with Cedric Denson, which I was invited to, but somehow wasn't able to go.
You told me you're out of town.
I did, I know, I'm not.
You're out of town.
I was.
I invited you and you're out of town.
Was the discussion at that basically regarding, using that land and water grant for
Oh,
the
no,
pool?
for Cedric, no. Cedric was all about the capital improvement, the state capital appropriations. That was
Who did you have the discussion with then about the pool? I thought you had a discussion with somebody about the
Cedric,
pool.
about
With
the
Cedric.
pool, yeah.
So there's this, which all the conversations with this has been about Dogwood Park. All the conversations about the pool have been with Cedric Denson and framing it as a capital appropriations for next year.
Okay,
A state capital appropriations for next year.
okay.
They've been mutually exclusive conversations.
So what you're saying is, if we proceed to go with this grant for Dell Park, there is another avenue by which, Dogwood Park, excuse me. There's another avenue that you have explored and are pursuing with regard to capital improvements at the pool.
Yes.
Okay.
Well, what would that be?
The state capital appropriations.
Biennial budgeting, that, let them know by this fall what.
Phase with Cedric are you at with that?
There is some very specific things that he gave us great guidance on doing, some steps to take. So I thought that, Marcy, we could talk about that in the Economic Development Steering Committee, because we're going to need,
Actually, I already reached out to Emil on a preliminary basis just to bring him up to speed. And he had some initial thoughts, but he wanted to do some more checking. So I've actually had that conversation with him, did that
Perfect.
last week, and expect to hear
because
back from him.
he's key to this.
I know he is, and he knows, and he had a lot of really good ideas. He's, how he is, he's very enthusiastic, but when I kind of heard all this was going on, I thought, it might be a good idea to just get his 2 cents and bring him up to speed. And there were also a couple other issues that we've been talking about in the steering committee that I just wanted updates on. So Bill and I kind of had a little informal Zoom with him last week. So he's working on some of this and aware of the grant, and was going to get back to me this week with some more detailed information from his perspective.
Yeah,
Can you
'cause-
share that with us when you get it,
Oh,
please?
yeah, absolutely.
You're talking about the
Absolutely.
land and water grant?
Yes, the land and water grant.
Oh,
Oh, that's good to know.
I didn't know anything about the appropriations.
so he's only looking at the land and water grant at this point in time, or, I mean, can we introduce this? That you've been talking with Cedric about, can we throw that his way and see what he thinks about that? I don't know, just-
Maybe it would make sense for all of us to have a talk. I just wanted to just, kind of feel him out and see if he had any input, and then without stepping on any toes, I just wanted to just try to kind of get that together and get him thinking in that direction. And, basically, there was a lot of what he said is, I've got some people I can talk to, let me talk to them and get back to you.
Yeah, well, there's gatekeepers, and that's what we've learned, is there's gatekeepers to this. That-
Randy, I've got a bunch of questions, and these are questions, and if they come across in any way, shape, or form as criticisms of anything that you're doing.
Well,
kick
you've been
me-
through this
kick
before,
me-
so you
kick
know.
me, because that's not the intent, they're just questions. And they don't have to be answered, well, let me just go through.
I'll do
The
my,
first-
it's a 48-page document, I'll do my best.
The first question.
Start the 3
Is-
minutes.
The Northern Kentucky MPA program, who's going to be writing this grant application, or assisting us with this grant application, have they ever gotten a Land and Water Conservation Fund grant?
No, but the director, what is her name? Dee Burleson is going to do a Zoom call with them in 2 weeks. And the other thing he's done is he's gotten, and this is just based upon one meeting, he's gotten some applications from other ones
Right.
that he's put together, that got grants.
Okay, so, and it's just a question, and if we apply for the LWCF grant, the application goes in November, and it's administered by ODNR, but it's actually a federal grant, and when it goes to them, they review it, they do their thing, they make a recommendation, then it goes to the National Park Service, because it's really a federal program, and then they review it, and then once they approve it, then they go into contract. Bottom line is, it's at least a year before you have a contract from November, if it's awarded. So my question, it's a long-winded question, my question is that if we're not able to use money that we have this match for until November of '24, and then start planning construction and so forth in Dogwood Park with this grant money that we have, does it fit okay with the intent of our donors who've already given us money for things like the athletic fields and everything to wait, so that it's okay with them, just keep doing what you're doing, even if we don't end up building anything until
25.
25.
Well,
My question is
what-
if they're good with that.
Well, that probably needs to be asked and answered.
That's a challenge that we have. I will tell you that of the funders we have, there's only one that I'm worried about, and it's for $75,000. I'm having breakfast with Lee Carter on Thursday, and I'm going to get his direction on how to approach that. When I talked to Dee Burleson, she seemed to think that we could get spades in the ground by October of 2024, based upon this whole timeline.
But you only find out if you don't have a contract until November of '24.
You mean the
No,
grant?
she said it was late spring of '24, and that.
That's when you're
it'd be about-
notified if you're recommended, and then it all goes to the National Park Service.
I spoke to her, and she said by October of next year.
So she'd be sort of like fast tracking us, or, I mean, are we skipping a step?
That is what she told me.
That October of
best
24,
information.
we would know what? That we would, if we
We
received?
we would be able to put spades in the ground.
So that includes knowing that we've been awarded the grant, going to bid, lining up the construction, and then putting spade to ground in a year, in a month.
So
That seems
It
aggressive.
kind of makes sense where we're notified that we're being recommended to NPS, National Park Service. So at that time, you start getting bids out and stuff, knowing that you're going to get a grant, even if you can't actually spend money until November, or, seek reimbursement. So that makes
So
sense.
may,
That answers the
let
question.
me ask, is that consistent with what you've seen from, Clean Ohio? And is that timing consistent with what you've seen from?
It's different because of this National Park Service thing and it being a federal program that's delegated down to ODNR.
But aren't those other, Clean Ohio and NatureWorks, aren't those also from the Department of Interior that come down? I believe they are.
Require a review up in Washington,
At the federal level.
yeah. So, that's all, can't really tell you more than that, but there was not that step in the Clean Ohio Trails Fund grant. There just wasn't. So another question that I have is, we think when you mentioned that this is a long shot. This is a competitive grant, and one of the primary metrics that they look at is your demonstration of need. That's the number one thing, demonstration of need. We've got some really good things to say about Dogwood Park because our fields are in such a mess, and how many users we have and all these kinds of things. We're strong with public participation that we've done and some of these other things, but have we talked to people who have experienced landing LWCF grants to see that we have a strong case when we include some of the fancier stuff in Dogwood Park into our application? The plaza, the
Necklace.
the plaza, the gateway, these kinds of things. Are we are we pushing things in the land and water conservation grant by going for things that are sort of like extras? They're not necessarily needs in a park.
Well, what I did, I pulled down the grading,
Right.
which is probably what you did. Probably what the first guy hopefully does. And I believe for every one of these that we can qualify for the highest grading of each of these. The one the one I'm a little concerned about was long-term maintenance. Is there a plan for long-term maintenance of the park? And one of the things, when I read that, one of the things I thought about was maybe we can get to the point where we can get an endowment for Dogwood Park. And maybe that can be part of all this, to get an endowment for Dogwood Park, to say, here's $100,000 we're going to put in this endowment, and we're going to pull, 10,000, whatever out a year to do it. But, everyone has to demonstrate need. When I've done a lot of these, most of these have been in private funders. I remember I've had this conversation saying I feel disingenuous asking for this money. And every funder that I've said that to said, don't think that. Don't be disingenuous. You have taxpayers. You deserve this as much as anyone else. Those parks are used. The playground is used. We've gotten data from MRA. I don't have data on the playground uses. We'll have to figure out a way to do that. But I think that we can demonstrate need. The other thing is, I will tell you that people come for miles to go to our park, our playground, because it's under a canopy of trees and it's natural. People love it because of the way it is. And that's a lot of what we're selling.
Yeah, that sounds good. The Land and Water Conservation Fund grant, that's where the big money potentially is, because you can get as much as $500,000 with a match. And it's also a possibility that we could use it for the pool. I mean, that is a possibility. And that point that you made about where it's only restricted to residents, I have to be honest with you, I have to go back and reread that, because I know that that municipal pools have been funded all around the state, and so I don't know how they did that, but it has been accomplished. So my question is that, are we comfortable as council we're only gonna get one of these grants if we can even get it, because part of that scoring is if you just already got a land and water conservation grant, you're kind of knocked off.
No,
So-
you get 10 less points. You get 25 for first time, 10 for second. So it's 15 points.
Right, but it's a big hit. And, are we comfortable as a council that we should pursue the new stuff of Dogwood Park with this grant opportunity versus taking care of our existing stuff with the pool? And that's just a question, because we do, is there an opportunity cost that we have if we shoot for the grant and we get it for Dogwood Park, are we losing the opportunity to get it for the pool? And which is more important? And that, I guess, is my question.
Just a point of clarification, does the pool qualify for this grant?
Yes.
My understanding, because it is discrimination based upon residence is prohibited. So that means it would have to be a public pool.
Well, it's residents,
is
residents of Mariemont? I
Where
guess I'd be
you
clarifying.
can't say you can come to this pool because you live here.
Can you say you can come to the school because you're in the school district?
No, that's the same thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't ask that question, and if that's the case, I mean, then it would knock it out.
Right. So do we ask that question?
Well, I will tell you, if we go back, because when you asked me to call, I says, well, I'm gonna call Darren. Darren's gonna call her boss, Julie Iffersing. She's gonna call Steve Johns. Steve Johns is gonna call Maria Collins and the director, and she's gonna call me, and I don't believe we'll look very favorably of getting any other cooperation from Hamilton County Planning and Development.
What, you mean if we apply for this for the pool?
Yes.
we would-
Well, no, if we want to apply this to the pool, I will tell you, I don't have the bandwidth to do it. There's so much work. You have to get the matching. Can we get matching funds in the next 3 months? Can we do surveys? Can we
No.
do all that stuff
No,
in the
we
next 3
can't.
months?
I mean, we can't. We would be applying for the pool a year and 3 months from now.
Right.
It
Not
wouldn't
in
be
3
this
months.
November.
Yeah,
I mean, there's no way we would
Right.
put all
Right,
that together.
right.
Let me ask this question. I'm going to go back to your conversation with Cedric, which revolved around the pool. What would be our next step with that, and how confident would we be getting money for that as opposed to the long shot for the land and water grant? I say long shot because it is said that it's a long shot.
I will tell you, he was very specific with his guidance. It is consistent with the conversations that I've had with other people who have gotten state money. I'm confident in the strategy. I think we'll be in the room when the decisions are made, or to make our pitch.
How much money is available on that grant, on the state grant?
For the pool?
Yeah, for the
Or
pool.
what?
No, I asked for 350.
Oh, yeah, that's correct. I
Well,
bumped.
this is the same that Doug Mormon, who's vice mayor with the Government Strategies Group, they've got, I'm not sure how much of this 316 they got for McDonald's Commons the last time. I'm not sure how much of that was from that, but I think it was a big chunk, came from that state allocation.
When we engaged with Envision, I know we talked about grants. Would we be stepping out of the proposal if we asked them to focus on trying to find something for the pool? Is that still within the scope of our agreement? I don't know.
Well, I think our agreement is more over
Economic development.
economic development strategy at large. I don't think it precludes it, but I also don't,
Hey, what about this? Hey, what about this?
Yeah.
Type.
I mean, and I think Randy's already opened a door that, that is worth exploring and finding out about. I think it's worth having a wider conversation in the Economic Development Committee about this. I just I was, the Bill and I had a bunch of issues. This was one of them. I just was feeling him out last week, just seeing if he had any input, and then we could certainly follow up and have a deeper discussion if you wanted to do that.
Thanks,
Thank you, guys. Can I ask really quickly, what is your understanding of the timeline for the state capital budget?
October, November.
So my understanding is submitting the first week of October. Does anything need to happen in this body it's a very simple grant, but to submit that?
I would say that, is your meeting is that next week? When's the steering committee?
We don't have one scheduled
Oh,
till
there's no one
October.
scheduled. All right, so-
But he's willing to do, he's willing to do informal updates anytime by Zoom. So
I think-
he's accessible to us whenever.
I think that we should decide who's going to take the lead.
Okay.
on putting all this together, and what does it look like? You're right, the form is very simple. The big challenge is getting it,
Sure, but there is deadlines, and I didn't know. I just want to be very clear that September would be a busy month if this body had to pass something to greenlight the submission of that in early October. That said, going back to the original question at hand, what made you call Randy and say pull it?
Because there was certain discussions regarding whether or not we should be applying for a grant for Dogwood
priority?
Park versus the swimming pool, given the probability of success in getting the grant for Dogwood Park. And that was my question to you in 1 second. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought part of the conversation that we had with Emil was that he was ranking the probability of getting the Land and Water grant for Dogwood Park lower than it would be for getting it at the pool.
No, I think what he said more specifically was more consistent with what Randy said. It's a long shot, and they only do about 6 of them.
Well,
And
you mean
my
period,
understanding of that conversation was
period? It's a long shot for no matter what we're applying for?
Yes.
Okay.
And he was gonna reach out, review this stuff, and get back to me early this week. I was gonna follow up with him tomorrow, because we just talked on Friday, and just see if he had anything to add to the conversation.
I'd be happy to, I talked to Bill, to answer your question, Susan. I asked if we could hold off until this meeting tonight, and at that time, I wasn't aware of the June 26th council meeting, because I wasn't on council, and I had a lot of questions, so,
They were
and
good
I
ones.
wanted those answered, but I didn't suggest to Bill that we
Don't do it.
pull it, that we hold off until we have a chance to talk about it at the council meeting. It's a big difference.
Yeah,
So then
I hope-
who suggested for you to say, Randy, don't do this?
I don't, did
'Cause
you say pull it or
You
just back burner?
wanted me to call Darren, and I said,
I
you know
only,
what,
yeah,
we
but.
better not do that.
Well, if you took it that way, I was only saying, basically.
I don't think there's anything productive
Right,
beyond
thank
this.
you.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
misunderstanding,
Yep,
there was a
yep.
misunderstanding.
What is the I'm just curious, what's the downside of going forward with this right now?
I will probably put 40 to 50 hours into this, that's the downside.
I mean, if we don't do it.
If we do it, that's the downside for me is if we do it, I've committed myself
But
to.
everyone's talking about, oh my goodness, when we go out and get this, if we're lucky enough to get this, and everyone agrees, that's a good thing if we get this,
That's
correct?
why I don't understand a lot of
If we're
this.
lucky enough to get this, then, oh no, we're not gonna be lucky to get money for the pool next year. Is that the discussion?
From
Just
this
so I understand.
grant.
I'm a very simple thinker.
Ed, the question for me is where do we have a better shot, for the pool or Dogwood Park? That was my question.
Oh,
And I
okay.
think Randy did a good job answering.
Well, I gotta tell you, it's a legitimate question
Yeah.
too, you know.
Yeah, I think. But I like this for the sake of having all this conversation, because I had some concerns, to be honest, of knowing everything that we needed to know, and you've done a great job of clarifying that. And I think going forward, if we could make that part of the process, where we all felt like we had all the information to make a decision,
That's fair.
okay, thank you.
I was only trying to delay
Oh,
just for that
stop,
conversation.
stop. Hey,
That's all I was doing.
Ixnay, ixnay.
Oh, well,
So, is it time we read that we make a motion to
Do we need
have
to,
a second reading of that resolution?
Oh, no, I don't know why we're having a vote. We already agreed to do this.
Yeah.
on-
Oh, I think, Matt, you're
No,
going,
no, we're
you're just
talking
getting
about
back
taking
on
the one
track.
off the table.
Untable that resolution.
That's for Dale Park.
Yeah.
Well, let's wrap this up. Are we good here?
Yeah.
With the, okay. So what's our next step in regards to the LWCF? I'm sorry, I want to package this before we move on.
Well, actually, I think what Randy said tonight is he's got a better memory than I do. I think council already has authorized him to go forward and keep doing it. And now what you're doing right now, it's just basically reaffirming what you previously authorized him to do. And is that the way to word it? Correct.
I think what we authorized him to do was to proceed with Northern Kentucky University. Part of this grant application requires legislation.
Yeah, we're gonna have,
that we'll
there's a
have to do
lot.
later.
Yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
lot. So yeah, I think that that's right, though, that we're reaffirming that the Village of Mariemont will be working with Northern Kentucky University Master of Public Administration graduate level course, and we're the guinea pig where these students put together the application.
Guinea pig. I kind of see that point.
Well,
I mean, are we
probably a
confident?
better term.
I mean, if we have
Are we confident these kids are gonna do it?
Well, that's the question. That's the
Hey,
question.
if the professor.
And you know what? If it doesn't happen, we just blame them. There's your guinea pig.
Throw the
sitting
kids under the
right
bus.
there.
If you look in the procedural guide, that's where I got that about the residence
Yeah.
requirement. That
Yeah.
would be good information for
Yeah,
us
it'll be
moving
good, yeah,
forward.
Exactly.
Important distinction.
All right, so that's that issue. The other issue is to untable the
Yeah.
authorized solicitation of bids for Dale Park and the improvement project.
So you need a move to untable it?
So moved.
Yes.
There you
Or
go.
second. You
Okay.
moved before.
Wait, who moved?
Susan moved, I'm seconding.
Oh, I was gonna say, I
Nope,
apologize.
Take
Okay.
it.
All right, Mr. Air.
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis.
Aye.
Mrs. Rankin.
Aye,
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, that is
untabled.
untabled. Are we going to have then the second reading now?
Say it again?
Are we going to have the second reading then now?
Yes, I thought you just did it. Yeah, we'll do it right now.
Okay, so do
Second
the
reading.
second reading. Okay, to authorize the solicitation of bids for the Dale Park Improvement Project.
Don't we have a resolution for Pocahontas today? That's not on the agenda. Is it?
Is it on the agenda? Can
No?
Can we, yeah, it's not on the agenda. Can we do the second reading?
Not
Oh,
for-
no.
For Pocahontas, so.
Do we do it the next time?
Well, it was on,
Right, isn't that right?
What's that?
I
No,
mean,
Dale Park, I get that, yeah.
No,
it's
I don't think
on there
so.
as a tabled resolution.
For Dale Park is, yeah. I'm just getting ahead of myself like I so often do. I just want-
So are we
Do we
allowed,
need a resolution for the Pocahontas?
We're not there yet.
No, that's
are we allowed to have a resolution?
To have a second reading
Yeah.
on a resolution that we just.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
We had the
ahead of
first
myself.
reading, we tabled it, and now we're wanting to have
Yeah.
the second reading.
Is the agenda enough that we are allowed to have a second reading? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, I read it. Do I need to read it again?
Well,
No.
Okay.
okay.
All right, should we go to the next one?
Well, hold on, I mean, this is the second
So we had
reading,
second
that's the
reading.
discussion.
There is
Okay.
I think we've
discussion.
had, do we need more discussion?
No.
No?
Yes, I have a list.
Oh, yes, I have, okay.
Okay,
Press the eject button on his chair.
All right, we're moving on to the Steve
Okay.
Pipkin resolution.
to appoint Steve Pipkin as a member of the Parks Advisory Board for the calendar years 2023 and 2024.
All right, that's the first reading. We will have the second reading next time.
Okay. Resolution approving grant application with Ohio History Connection for the boathouse and to declare emergency.
All right, you've had the first reading. I need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow for the second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Air.
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis. Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York.
Aye.
All right, second reading.
Resolution approving grant application with Ohio History Connection for the boathouse and to declare emergency.
All right, second reading, that's the discussion. Any discussion? Matt, you want to say anything about this?
Mayor Brown and Chuck and I have reviewed the roof at the boathouse a couple of times now. It needs repair. The estimated cost is $31,000. We have a quote from Imbus Roofing. It's complicated to do it because of how they have to disassemble the roof and put it back to, even though there's only 36 tiles, or thereabouts that need to be replaced. We feel like we're on borrowed time, that it'll eventually be leaking if we don't do this quickly.
Yeah, well, Matt, also, I mean, it's not just the tiles in that bid. I mean, there's gutter work and there's flashing work also.
Gutters and flashes.
So it's not
One
$1,000 a tile.
No.
But it is ridiculous. If you do it on a per tile basis, it is ridiculous, but to replace one, they have to take this whole
Yeah.
section out.
Okay.
Anyway, the Ohio History Fund is financed by, when you fill out your tax form, you say, would you like to donate $1 to the Ohio History Fund? And
Oh,
most
right.
people say no, some people say yes. And, or if you go buy a license plate with the mastodon on it that says Ohio History Connection, that money goes into this program and some other private donations, and it is a competitive grant. They get approximately 50 to 60 requests per year. They fund between a fourth and a fifth. So this is, again, where our odds may be not that great. I did talk to the grant administrator, and I described our project before I even went to the trouble to start filling anything out. He said that's an excellent project, and we score well on a couple of points, and that is that it's National Historic Landmark status village. It's a contributing structure. It's got the historic aspect. It's got the community use aspect. So he said you would have a very competitive application. You should definitely submit it. So that is put together. I have a draft of it, and I sent it to Bill and Chuck and Linda at MPF, because she's the archivist who will review all my facts to make sure that they're correct. And it's due September 12th, and it needs a bookkeeper, a project director, and an executive. Bill is de facto the executive. Chuck would be the bookkeeper. There's just some simple reports that you have to do. And then Chris, I think, looks best as the project director with his professional engineering license and being the village engineer. So that's how it's set up. And it's a 60% with 40% local match. So even if we get this, which I hope we do, and it goes in roughly $32,000, we'd still have 12.5 that would have to come out of village coffers next year. And then the schedule gets all drawn out where we don't end up actually getting the roofer out working until probably next summer, because of just how this whole grant schedule works, and they won't let you start until May 4th, and they have all these defined steps that you have to go through.
Yeah.
A lot of work, really, for
A lot of work.
$20,000, but.
Yes.
But,
Well, it's a tricky, expensive roof, so.
And we had at one point approved quite a bit more
Well,
for this roof. So
the
this
last bid
seems
that I
like
got,
quite a deal.
over a year ago was $20,000.
Okay,
Yeah.
that we were gonna pay outright, so,
Right.
Yeah.
thank you. It sounds like we have the potential to,
yeah.
Do
well,
it for less?
Rob did the initial research too, and then gave me all the stuff to do it, so it was,
thank you for your work.
yep.
Okay.
All right, can we have the third reading?
Resolution approving grant application with Ohio History Connection for the boathouse and to declare emergency.
I write a motion and a second to adopt, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer.
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis. Ms. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York. Aye. All right, I need a motion and a second to evoke the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer. Ms. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Could you please
A
let
little
the,
slow on the eyes over there.
my
Dr. Lewis. Ms. Rankin.
aye.
Mr. York. Aye. All right, that'll be adopted. We have one ordinance.
An ordinance authorizing application and contracting with Hamilton County for the municipal fund and to declare emergency.
All right, we've had the first reading. I need a motion and a second to suspend the rules and allow for the second and third reading.
So moved.
Second.
Second, Mr. Ayer.
Hang on. Was it Susan?
I seconded.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Mr. Ayer. Brown Knight.
Aye.
Dr. Lewis. Mrs. Rankin.
Aye.
Mr. York. Aye. All right, can we have the second reading, please?
An ordinance authorizing application with Hamilton County for the municipal fund and to declare emergency.
Any discussion?
Not here.
Okay, sorry.
May we have the third reading?
Yes, an ordinance authorizing application and contracting with Hamilton County for the municipal fund and to declare emergency.
All right, I need a motion and a second to adopt.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer?
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis? Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right, a motion and a second to evoke the emergency clause.
So moved.
Second.
Mr. Ayer?
Aye.
Ms. Brown Knight?
Aye.
Dr. Lewis? Mrs. Rankin?
Aye.
Mr. York?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned.
Wait a minute,
I like it when you get-
recognize somebody.
Go ahead.
Hi,
I
there's
actually-
Randy.
My wife's here, and she did not know I was gonna do this, and I should have said this. I thought our little Taste of Mariemont yesterday was the best I've ever been to. As a matter of fact,
Very good.
Congressman Lansman did a shout out in his Instagram post about how special the village is, so it was.
Oh, great.
It was a great day for the village.
Yay.
The weather was cool.
Oh, my gosh.
Fantastic.
Wasn't it amazing?
If you have that saved on your computer, could you just send it? All the names.
Thank you.
I just want to make sure I spell it